So I actually, this kind of works out better too. PSA is supposed to be opening back up in what, 10 days, 9 days from now. Um, and that's kind of why we wanted to have you on, just to kind of give some general information to our audience. What's July 1st looking like for you guys?
We don't know exactly yet. Believe it or not, we're still nailing down the specifics. We're definitely going to reopen service levels that are not currently open, but we're not sure if we're going to open all of them back or not. We're still burning down a lot of the backlog. I think one thing people hopefully appreciate is, we're not willing to sacrifice quality of the grading process. So we're not going to have our graders grade more cards than they were previously. We're going to maintain that same quality. And I think people, frankly, would rather have turnaround times improve on the old stuff than be able to submit new stuff. So
I agree.
We're pretty focused on making sure we do the right thing for the people who've already sent in their cards. So I can't promise we're going to reopen everything, unfortunately.
Okay. In person at the National still? That's still on the table?
Yeah, definitely. I personally thought it was important for us to be there. I mean, I'll be there. We're going to be grading cards for sure at the National.
Cool. I don't know if you'll answer this question either. I am curious, what's the backlog look like now? Any idea, numbers-wise?
I don't know the specific number, but it's significant.
Okay.
Still many millions of cards.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not mad about that either. I was nervous when you guys first did it. Everything was going to come out in like 2 months, 3 months, and all of a sudden there was going to be too much. So I do think I guess let me ask you, they hear me talking off on here. My take has always been, although you guys are obviously just a grading company, your effect on the market is massive. If floodgates were to all of a sudden open, I mean, you know this, you've been collecting longer than I have. It would have a huge effect on the market. How does that play in when you're trying? I mean, I know you guys want to get people's cards back. At the same time, there's kind of that unspoken rule. You guys have to keep the reins on somewhat. How do you work that balance?
We honestly don't think about the value of the cards at all. We grade the cards on their merit. We don't really care if it's a $20 card or a $20,000 card. I mean, we care insofar as the handling, insurance, and guarantee that we put behind it. We need to charge the appropriate amount for those higher end cards. But as far as the grading and how that affects value, we don't think about it. I'll tell you one thing. I mean, some cards have gone down in value the last 6 months, and I've certainly been the recipient of my fair share of people yelling about their cards have gone down in our hands. But I can promise you it's worked the other way, whereas the card values go up. And as we had them in our hands last year, they weren't so mad. So, it goes both ways. But again, we don't factor it in at all.
So let me rephrase that. You'll notice throughout this, I'm not very good at asking questions. I actually mean just in terms of if you guys all of a sudden, if your backlog in 2 months was just cleared, 5 million cards hit the market. I guess not in terms of like, hey, is this card going to be an 8 or a 9, but just in terms of all of a sudden millions of cards, the floodgates in that regard, because that has to come into place. I mean, otherwise you guys would have just hired 1 million people and just had it done. I mean, it has to come into play there some way.
Well, again, it's none of our business if that affects the market or not. But as it relates to why that hasn't happened, we personally view it as a quality issue. We have a certain number of graders. We're hiring all the time. It's not possible to double or triple our capacity in a month, 2 months, 3 months. And so the volume we can accomplish each day is steadily going up, but it's not step changes. And we're not willing to sacrifice quality by just saying, hey, you know what? Let's grade twice as many cards as we usually do, because that would mean graders are spending less time on cards. That means they're probably making mistakes, and we're just not comfortable with that. So we'd rather tell people, look, you're going to have to be patient. We received an absolute avalanche of cards for about 3 or 4 months. We should have raised prices sooner to combat that, as our mistake. But people continued to send cards even when we increased the prices. And so, it just became untenable. And we're just going to, again, keep grading the cards at the pace that we're able to with the quality we want. And so the backlog kind of, like I said, it's our priority versus new cards coming in. So
I'm actually happy to hear that. I was terrified July 1st it was going to be, hey, value levels open again. And then just, 5, because me and Jesse know people, tons of people who are just holding out. Hey, as soon as July 1st hits, we're sending in hundreds, thousands, whatever it might be. So I am kind of happy to hear that. I'm also curious to get your take then on this. I grade quite a bit. We have some sub guys who do some huge numbers. We work with Cohen and PC and some of the other big guys in the country. It does seem like things have gotten much stricter in terms of grading over the past few months. guys who are popping 50 to 60% of 10s almost across the board have told us, hey, we're getting less than we used to. Do you think that's a sign of stricter quality control on your end, or is that more indicative of people just sending more cards?
I've looked into this a lot. I've been asked this question a lot. It's not, we don't see anything on our side data wise. I know people have their very limited data set, examples, anecdotes, which are just that, in my opinion. We're always willing to, by the way, to arrange a review of the cards where we can, regrade them and show where the deficiencies are. I'll tell you a couple things. We've certainly noticed on the modern cards, ultra modern, like the recently produced stuff that Panini and Topps put out, that quality has gone down on manufacturing. So, I mean, look at centering of 2019 through this year's Prism.
Horrible.
Yeah. So when people say I've been sending in Prism cards for years and the gem rate's gone down, I actually believe them because the card quality's gone down. And I've personally been sending in cards just like that, and I've seen the same thing. But again, it's mainly a quality issue. I've been in the grading room to see it myself too. So I think that's the biggest thing. But also, we have a lot of new cards coming in, and I think by definition, you're not going to have the same percentage of gems if you expand the number of cards you're sending in. People are sending in 80s and 90s cards that have been, sitting around forever, not graded, and all of a sudden they're getting graded. Those things aren't necessarily going to be 10s. They've been handled for a long time. So there's a lot of factors. Believe me, we're looking, we're always monitoring our quality at PSA, and there's been no change to be stricter.
So I've got a question as it relates to the grading. Geniment, you guys recently included that. Has that had any effect on grading? And first, tell us a little bit about it, and then how has it affected the grading process?
Yeah, so a lot of people speculate on that. It's actually not being used in the grading process yet.
Oh, okay.
It's still in R&D. So the primary purpose of it is actually not grading itself. It's actually an identification of fraud. We do think it can help the grading team by doing things like, well, first and foremost, not wasting their time by grading a card that shouldn't be graded, such as a card that's been trimmed or recolored or is inauthentic. But it could do things like, hey, here's the centering, take that into account when you're formulating your grade. That sort of stuff, though, has not been implemented yet. The primary purpose is card identification. So we know exactly what card it is we're grading based on machine learning. And then, is this card real or not? And has it been manipulated or not? And fingerprinting the cards too, so that we know, hey, this card was a PSA 8 before. We now see it and it looks like something's off with it. We need to know that. We're happy to regrade a card someone cracks, but we want to know it's the same card, because just unfortunately, there's a pretty big racket in this hobby where people historically have, not as a volume percentage, but on very high-end cards, buy them and touch them up to resend them back in.
Hey, so that's a huge, can I stop you 1 second, Nat? Something you just said is a huge misconception, and from what we keep hearing. It's if it's been graded before the fingerprint, you're not regrading. You will still regrade it, even if it triggers that fingerprint. Like, okay. I was curious about that.
As long as it hasn't been manipulated.
Sure.
Yeah. And I mean, in certain rare cases, we'll want the original label back, because say it's a 1-of-1 card. We don't want that label floating around.
Okay.
But again, we actually do want to discourage cracking. That's why we ask for labels back, because, I think people are familiar. There are fake cases floating around, not just of us, but of Beckett and others. And, if we have a label floating around, someone could fake a card, put a real label on it in a fake holder. And, someone could seemingly think they're buying a PSA graded card. It's a real label, but it's not the real card. So we do want to discourage cracking. We want people to trust our grading process. But that's an example of, it's primarily for identifying card manipulation.
Okay. Yeah, I do like that, because that was the big thing is, hey, all of a sudden, because like you said, there's a ton of guys who do that, especially the prospect guys. I can just wipe down the surface a little bit better, clean it up, send it back in. So they can still do that.
Like if you clean fingerprints and stuff, I'm not a grader, but that's from what I understand, fine.
Sure.
It's
beyond that.
It's the people who buy cards with a yellow spot and white them out. It's that kind of stuff. Or, flatten them and trim them. Like there's a lot of tricks they use. And we have a threshold, and we can't detect a lot of things. But if we know the card, if we've seen the card before, we certainly can, before and after.
Interesting. So. Okay, I'm glad to know that. That's news to me. That's cool.
When does that come out of R&D? When do you guys implement?
I'm not sure. We're not. The grading process is sacred to me. We're not going to implement something until the grading team is fully on board and has been properly trained and feels comfortable. Most importantly, that it's going to add to their ability to detect these sorts of things. So it's probably still a ways away.
Oh, okay. So one question from a guy, Evan Michael. He wants to know if you guys plan on expanding services to any other countries, specifically Canada, but any others besides that?
Definitely. I think it's just a question of when. We're very, I would say, focused on the US issue, which is the backlog of people who've sent cards to us that live here in the US, but also ex-US. They've sent cards through group subs and dealers ex-US. We just have to get through our backlog first. We are going to expand, though. Our first office outside of California will be in the US soon. We're actually looking at spaces now, which we're really excited about. I hope the step after that, it's either going to be another office in the US or will be outside of the US. But I would love to see 3 or 4 offices, outside of the US in the near future. Just near future is probably, though, 2 or 3 years. I mean, the number one thing, like I said, I've said it a bunch, is quality. We have to ensure that when we grade cards, say in Canada, that it's at the exact same standard as it is in California.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not super easy. We have to have people from California, be willing to move there and start the office and train new, so there's a lot that we have to think about, but we'll definitely do it.
So I just want to make sure I didn't miss it. So you are planning on expanding another US branch would be the top priority?
Yeah, we're gonna announce that like in the next couple months.
Oh, okay, nice. That's what was my next question. I was curious as if you had a time frame in mind. So
yeah, I doubt it'll be operational this year, but we're gonna sign a lease in the next couple months if everything goes well.
Well,
nice.
Kind of to go along with that, a guy, Ian Babcock, said that there was rumored a hybrid grading service that was going to be started in Seattle. What's your thoughts on hybrid grading? And if that's true?
I don't know what that's.
Okay.
I don't either. Yeah, what are you talking?
No, I think hybrid
PSA
grading
service.
Yeah. A hybrid. I think they were referring to something that's
some sort of an expansion.
Well, and I think it's more of a technological grading with human and technology using the grading service.
Our goal with Genament is to integrate it so that the grading team is using, technology to help. They're still the arbiter and the final say of the grade, and they're the primary, I would say, majority of the grading process for sure. But so in theory, that's a hybrid grading process, but we don't think of it that way. It's still PSA grading.
I have a question on that too, just because this is one thing that always gets me angry, the amount of people, customers like myself, because that's all we are. We're customers on the other side of things. The term AI has become like the catchiest phrase to use in grading now. I'm not that smart with, trust me, I barely can set up Zoom. Jesse holds my hand like a small child. But I am curious, is PSA, I just feel like that's one of those catchphrases. People use it now to prove that one service is better than another. And at least to me, it's never been explained that, hey, this is actually AI as opposed to just software, or I think you even use the term like machine learning, which I think you'd agree is different than just this concept of AI, though. What are your thoughts on that in grading right now?
Yeah, look, people in every industry overuse the term. It's I would say the vast majority, including what we're doing, is not anywhere close to true artificial intelligence. We're just trying to use computers to make predictions of things like, is this, predict if this card is trimmed or not. Like that's a question you can ask of a computer with enough data, training data that, in theory, a computer could do that quite well if it has, measurements or if it knows the card, a prior photo of that exact same card. But that's not, sure, it's like some concept of AI, but at the end of the day, it's simple. It's, we're not flying people to the moon here. Like we're rendering an opinion on a 0 to 10 scale of a card's quality. It's not,
I'm happy to hear that. Everybody always dances around that stupid question, and I never get an answer that's just like, no, it's really not. It's just machine learning. So I appreciate the transparency with that one.
Any thoughts on future adding of photos, like when cards are graded?
No, I'm actually really excited about this. The first order of business when I showed up is I wanted every card graded that I wanted scanned before and after the grading process, front and back. We've made actually, people don't realize this. We are scanning, I think, over half of the cards now that we're grading.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, we haven't really, and almost every card that we receive, so you can't really grade anything with computers unless you have a picture of it. And so we're taking pictures of the cards at a pretty high clip that, frankly, somewhat behind the scenes. No one's really exposed to that because the raw image isn't really useful yet. We have some ideas as to how we make it useful for the customer. But the slabbed cards, we are scanning a significant percentage of those now. And our goal is to have every single card that we grade front and back imaged so that the customer can see it in their inventory, in their stats. They could download the image for whatever purpose, selling it, whatever. Or when a customer does a cert lookup and they want to make sure it's the same card they're buying.
That's what I was thinking. That would be huge. Okay, so you guys are already doing a lot of that stuff behind the scenes, just hasn't been brought to the public. Okay.
Yeah. Oh no, but if you probably haven't noticed now, but if you I'd say any card at Express or above, if you type in the cert number and it's recently graded, the image will be on the website.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. We haven't really touted it because it's not super complete yet. It will be hopefully in the next few months, but we want to get it right. So.
Nice. Maybe just a couple more questions then. Nathan Richmond had asked, after the backlogs cleared out, we see economy value levels open back up. Do you still expect a 10 to 12 month window?
Oh, no, I hope not. I mean, the truth is we're going to be burning this backlog down for quite some time. I think, if you just look at the numbers, we're going to be dealing with this for a year or so. But once we get the backlog to a more manageable number, 1 million, 2 million cards, maybe even less than 1 million where it was before COVID. There's no reason we can't get back to 2-3 month turnaround times. I can't promise specifically because it depends on how much we reopen and how many cards we allow to come in. Our goal is to never again, for a while there, I said this number before, we're grading tens of thousands of cards a day. In a single day, we received 660,000 cards before the price increased because it leaked. So you can't have that multiple delta between what you're able to do and what you receive. And by the way, before that, it was still 4 or 5 times on a daily average, more cards than what we were able to grade. And so we have to get the balance of incoming cards to be kind of in a comfortable range of, frankly, lower than what we're able to grade, because we're going to need to dedicate our grading capacity to the backlog. And so when we reopen, it's going to be very thoughtful to that. We're going to allow some percentage of our capacity to go to new cards, but still a majority going to the backlog until the backlog burns down, at which time we have to make sure that incoming number is manageable. And we're going to have to do that through pricing or through, restriction of service. And we don't want to do restriction of service. We want people to be able to send in their cards. So we're going to have to pick a pricing level that, allows people to send in their cards, but still doesn't create another avalanche where we have another big issue. But I'll say by that point, we're adding graders every day, every week. And with technology, I think we can expand a lot over the next year where, we can incomingly receive more cards than we did previously. So,
hey, just to ask a numbers quick question real fast. So right now, what's any idea what a rough estimate of cards you can grade daily are?
It varies a lot because on some, we spend a lot of time on vintage cards and on because no one's faking a 2020 base Prism John Morant, but they certainly are of 1952 or 86 Fleer. So it just depends. On a good day, it's several tens of thousands.
Okay.
That day, it's lower, 10, 20,000.
So with that being the case, that when you guys open back up, it sounds like pricing is going to be the way that you guys kind of slow things down, speed things up, so to speak. Do you view PSA as going forward that gold standard of grading where you're not really looking necessarily for some of these lower price cards to be sent in? Do you want more competitors in the field?
Yeah, no, this is another misnomer. I'm a collector, by the way. I collect sets. I think it's very important that people should be able to grade whatever card they want. Especially collectors who need, say, base cards graded to complete a certain set of theirs if they're trying to do it in PSA. So I have every intention of allowing us to get back to the point where we have, $10, $15 service levels that allow a 1981, Topps baseball common card to be graded without being stupid for spending, $50 on it.
Sure.
That is the plan. The challenge is, there's so many cards that meet that threshold that would all of a sudden be sent to us, like we saw in the last few months. So we will get back there when we're able to. So.
And let me switch it up too. Just because I am curious, because like I said, I've known the name Nat Turner for a long time, just from being a collector. I've seen some of your posts with the cards, the sets, different things like that. I am curious, just to get off the grading for just a minute. Obviously, it's in a pretty harsh correction right now, dip across the market. where do you see things going in the next 6 months to a year?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've certainly seen, I would say, the higher supply cards go down, like the LeBron Topps Chrome rookies, the Jordan Fleer. I mean, the cards with hundreds or thousands of examples. But I'll tell you, on the high end stuff, like not even high end, things that
Hasn't moved.
or it's gone up. I mean,
Right.
I don't know if this is going to be video or not, but like I've got, I'm holding like some of my rare like vintage cards. Just
Henry.
Yeah, my Hank Aaron 10 rookie. Like I'm going out to California this week to spend time with the team. I need to get this reholdered. So as an example, like that kind of stuff, I mean, obviously this is the highest of high end, but even if you go to like sub 10 pop stuff, that's a few $100s, like that stuff is still taking off. It's the classic supply demand problem.
What's the pop on that Aaron, by the way? Do you know?
2, yeah.
That's funny. He just got a card sitting on his countertop there. I like that. Yeah.
Well,
that's a nice card.
I was literally organizing before I got on.
Jeez.
That's funny.
So, the point is I think demand has gone down on high-end cards just because a lot of people acquired them that needed them, and now they don't need another one.
Right.
It's classic supply demand. So I think the hobby's in a great place health-wise. We're going to go through these ups and downs. I mean, I think the easiest thing to say is even the card values is today, if you go back 6 months, they're still up multiples of where they were. So no one can be really that mad.
Yeah, we always talk about that. The floor now is still so much higher than the ceiling used to be. I don't know how guys can get upset.
Well, I'll give you the Topps Chrome LeBron. I mean, I bought 10 of them 3 years ago because I thought they were nice. I didn't care the value, actually. I just really like LeBron. And you fast forward today, they're down 50% from where they were in January.
Sure.
But they're up 16 times from where they were 2 years ago. So, still at the lower rate. So you really, I mean, the speculators who pumped a bunch of money into it in January probably are hurting, but that's what you get for speculating. You can go up or down just as fast. So.
Now, Nat, going forward, do you view the card market as, are we past where we were, say, in the 90s, we saw a big increase. We saw a bubble and it burst. It died back down. We saw in the early 2000s with eBay, a bubble, it burst, it came back down. But now we've seen the market come back up, and it's come back up, but not nearly as much. Like we were just saying, the lows are still much higher than they were. What's your overall vision of the sports card market going forward past the next 6 months to a year? Do you think that this is the new norm where more and more people continue to get into cards, or do you think we just kind of stay around this level of peak? Have we peaked in interest at this point?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we have a lot of room to grow. I'll tell you, I mean, I view this is one reason I got involved with Collectors Universe and PSA. I mean, I view it as a big responsibility of ours. And there's many other companies that I think are helping this, is to make the hobby safe and high integrity and, just limit friction so that people who are getting into it aren't taken advantage of, aren't scammed, feel comfortable and confident that what they're buying is fair value and is what they're actually thinking they're actually buying. And like, I've had friends get into it and buy things on eBay that, they aren't what they thought, and or it was a good experience, but they just, that one bad if you have one bad experience and you're new to the hobby, it's gonna potentially not make you want to keep buying cards and collect. And so I think a big part of it's getting kids back into it. My biggest fear, frankly, is the card manufacturers with prices. My 5-year-old son, when we go to the store, I can't hand him his $5 allowance and have him buy a pack of cards anymore. That's the part that scares me, is Walmart shutting down and Target, like, because you have guys following trucks,
right.
And waiting. That's the part that freaks me out more than anything. Is because for this thing to be healthy, you need to get the next generation involved.
Sure. I just don't know how they control that. I mean, because guys know if I go to Walmart and buy a 19.99 cent pack, like, it's going to be worth $100 on eBay. I don't know what you do.
I know the problem is they have the same problem we do, is they can only control it through price, and so price.
Sure.
I mean, honestly, the best thing I would do if I were them is embrace local card shops and have local card shops, have product where Panini requires age, or parental. You have to sign up to get cards, then prove that these are for say that someone under the age of 18.
Sure.
I mean, there's when I was growing up, I mean, you could go to Target, Walmart, or local card shops and buy cards, and there wasn't the speculator gobbling them all up. I mean, they have to limit quantity. Allow one or two boxes per person. They can do that better online than they can in person. which they're doing. So, anyway, there's a lot of stuff like that, but I don't know that there's no great answer. I mean, that's the problem, is like, that's the biggest risk we have is inflation. And I would say also too, the lack of creativity amongst the card companies concerns me. We've moved to this world of like single products with 25 parallels, as opposed to, highly innovative, highly differentiated sets with really cool inserts and maybe one or two parallels, which maybe I'm just the old guy, but like that's what worked for like 25 years, and we moved away from it. And I'm not sure it works to have 25 variations of the same card. I don't think it does. Panini, I just opened a case of the 2020 Panini Basketball Prism. Like, was kind of boring.
It's yeah, I was gonna say you may get a color refractor, but who cares? It's the same card.
I feel like I wasted my money on that. Like, that's not a good feeling if I'm a 15-year-old kid who got one of those boxes for Christmas. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I can deal with it, but someone just getting into the hobby as a teenager, I don't know if they would. So.
Yeah, and I've always said too, I'm not sure why they don't take a couple products, because right now it just seems like the push has been make everything hobby available in a retail SKU. So just take 3 or 4 hobby SKUs that are average and just flood and retail exclusive and go nuts. Because if you started to flood that side of things too, flippers are not going to care if you can get there every week. Even something like Select's a good product. If you told me next year, hey, we're not making hobby Select, we're going to make 10 times the amount and it'll only be retail, I honestly think that solves a huge problem right there. There's no exclusivity to it. Everybody can get it, and we can live without one SKU in hobby.
The card manufacturers have way more of a say or influence in the future of hobby than people probably would like. I think the best thing happens, the leagues upstream of them should go non-exclusive and allow Topps to make basketball cards and allow Upper Deck to, that's, if you want innovation, like the reason we're so focused and innovating and investing at PSA is because we have competitors, and that's what makes us better. I don't know if the card manufacturers feel that same desire. So
yeah, no, I don't disagree. Anyways, not grading questions, but I know as tapped in you are, I was curious to kind of get your state of the union type view on the market. So, hey, we appreciate the time. Like I said, sorry for the screw up last month. That was actually I blame Ronick. It was actually my fault. I don't usually say that publicly. I'm a fan of blaming others and just taking credit when things go well.
Yeah,
it's really good.
It seems to work out good. So, anyways, appreciate it too. I've never seen a Hank Aaron PSA 10 ever. Yeah, so that's pretty ridiculous. So appreciate the time.
Here's Ernie Banks one too.
Okay, now we're just showing off. I gotta. He made fun of it earlier. I got a Beckett 9.5 Brady behind me that's worth $2,500. I thought it was living large. So, no, we appreciate the time, Nat Turner. What is the title, by the way? I was about to butcher this. I might as well just ask you.
Exec chairman.
Exec chairman of Collectors Universe, correct? Yeah. Okay, good deal. Well, there's your PSA info. We appreciate the time, sir, and hopefully we'll have you back on one of these days.
All right, see y'all.
Good deal.
Thanks, Nat.